Yes, yo.
The point I'm trying to make here is, they can't fuck with you now if you ain't ignorant. But you can't be political, social, and all this other dumb shit, and walk around with some fucking signs.
Right.
We gotta need priests. We ain't got time for this damn shit. You march now, and your ass will march in a grave, because that means that you are not in your realm. That means you telling the spirit realm, fuck that. I want to go back to the 60s. Hey, spirit realm, fuck that. I want to go back to the 60s.
I want to go back to the 60s.
Moors, or not even Moors, well, they Moors too, but unconscious Moors. That's what I
Exactly.
unconscious. You know, they don't want to
Denationalize Moors.
I guess they just don't accept their divinity. You know, they don't.
They're looking outside of themselves.
Yeah, they're too big, and the world is set up like that for you to continuously look outside of yourself. Oh, what is she doing? What is he doing? How is she doing? What's this UCC? That's another thing. I'm gonna be honest. That whole strongman thing, running and chasing and being, don't get. I can't tell you, whatever it takes for you to, whatever your journey look like is great. I'm not saying don't. I can't tell you what to do and what not to do. However, I don't care religion, UCC, strongman, whatever it is. Just don't get too caught up in any of that stuff. Always remember to go within yourself and to continue to study. And wherever you end up is where you're supposed to be. That's how it is. Wherever you end up is where you're supposed to be. That's how it is.
Officers arrested dozens of demonstrators in the pre-dawn raid after protesters defied orders to leave.
We're seeing really a whack-a-mole, Claire. Like, police go into one place, shut something down, protesters pop up another place. It's really quite a typical kind of police action protest cycle that we see in many incidents like this. The thing is, though, is a matter of timing.
Now, many are drawing comparisons between these protests and the major student protests in the United States that we saw in the late 1960s. Where would you situate these in relation?
There's a lot of similarities. There's also a few key differences. I was speaking to an American professor based in Boston just last night who's seen his share of protests over the decades and, in fact, teaches a lot about the history of protest in the U.S., especially when it comes to the anti-war movement in Vietnam and the civil rights movement in the 1960s, as you referenced. There were major, massive campus protests against the war and for civil rights back in the 1960s that led to major political divisions. And we're seeing a lot of these parallels today. The big difference, though, is even back then, there was a corresponding strong establishment political response to what students and people on campuses were saying about ending the war in Vietnam and giving more rights to Black Americans. And now you don't see that. Both Republicans, especially Republicans, but also Democrats, are not really speaking up in favor of these protesters. Yes, generally right to free speech, but no one, as we heard, Biden is not saying he's going to change his policies in any way, shape, or form.
And Biden has, as you've alluded to, finally broken his silence on these, saying that these protests across the country have not changed his position toward the region.
Police say at least 4 people were arrested after some demonstrators breached a security fence. Now, this year's DNC is bringing back old memories of the 1968 convention for some, and that is when police responded to protests with severe violence. Now, similar to 2024, we can show you some examples on this screen. 1968 was a tumultuous year in American politics for all of these reasons. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy were assassinated within just a few months of each other. A growing anti-war movement had formed over American involvement in the Vietnam War. There were several years of vocal student protests, which included violent skirmishes with police, and there was discontent within the Democratic National Party.
Now, I know this is probably a lot of information, and I hope I'm not going too fast. If I am at any point in time, please, raise your hand or give a nod or something, and I will slow down. All right? Yes.
Along the lines of what you're speaking, I couldn't find any turmoil when they filed bankruptcy, when they came out with the Federal Reserve note. I said, how did the people, who I thought the people were, I said, let the government do this to them. without something documenting that there was a riot.
Yeah.
Now you just answered my question. We're the people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. So, many of us don't realize that the brother just mentioned that, don't realize how much weight that carries. So when you, those of you who have been around in the 60s and have heard many speeches where people talk about power to the people, those individuals don't even know what they're talking about. All right? But when I say we the people, what do I mean? People means citizen, and citizen means people, which therefore means you are a member of society. And when I say society, I mean societas, which is another term for, get this, confederation.
Avengers, call that a hawk smash. Your conscious goon sniffling booze and role models won't accept facts and just quarrel. No 5 principles, of course, no profit. Facebook and YouTube names they won't have on the docket. They say go.